Right, let's get started then. So first of all, just want to welcome you here today. So the session that you're attending is Finding the Hidden Jobs. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I will just introduce myself first of all. So I'm Helen Frost. I am a careers consultant within the Faculty of Science and Engineering. I haven't always done this. I've been doing this job for the last 4 years or so, but before that I was a recruiter for quite a number of years in lots of large organisations. So this is a subject that's actually quite passionate for me. So I'm joined by some colleagues, Ben and Hannah, and also we welcome one of our alumni, Wouter Verheyen. So I'm going to just let them do some very brief introductions now, but you'll find out more about Wouter later on. So Ben, do you want to go first?
Yes, indeed. I hold a similar role to Helen. I'm another careers consultant, ironically from the Faculty of Science and Engineering. That's not important for today, but I have a background in scientific research. So yeah, we come from various different fields in careers.
Thanks. Hannah.
Hi everyone, my name's Hannah and I'm a careers advisor. I work with Helen and Ben, and today I'll be in the chat answering any questions that come through and popping some links in every now and again.
Thank you. And Wouter, do you want to do just a brief introduction?
Sure. Hi, my name is Wouter Verheyen. I'm based in Belgium and I graduated from the Chemical Engineering division from University of Manchester back in 2005.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, everyone. So as Ben alluded to there, although we are from the same faculty, actually you are very welcome in this session, no matter which faculty or course you are on at the moment. There will be information on here that spreads across those faculties. And Hannah mentioned as well, she's going to be trying to answer as many of your questions in the chat as possible. So please do feel free to make a note of those in there, either send them directly to Hannah or to everyone if you're happy for everyone to see the response. If we do have time at the end, what we might do is try and cover off some of those questions out loud. So if we don't get through to them as we go, then that is another option. So thank you for joining. I think I might have said that already. This session about hidden jobs, we first ran it at the start of lockdown. So beginning of 2020, and we received such great feedback that we decided to make this a regular event. So you may have been to a similar sort of event in the past. We've changed it up a little bit this time, so hopefully you won't hear exactly the same content again. We've got lots of topics to cover though in a 45-minute session, so we could run a whole session on lots of it. So if there's something that you'd like to find out more about, then we'd really encourage you to look on the Career Service website. There are other events running that you can find on Career Connect, or there's some previously recorded sessions as well on our link to, on our YouTube channel. So over the past few years, we've tended to record that. So that's some places to look. Also, Hannah's going to be posting some links in the chat as we go through. So if you want to do a bit more reading, there will be information available for you then. Okay, so I guess that you are here because you might have tried the more traditional routes of applying to jobs. So you might have seen an advert, sent your CV off, but maybe you found that you've not yet been offered a job or you've not been invited to an interview. Maybe it feels a bit like you've exhausted those job websites, you've sent loads of applications off to advertise jobs, whether that is internships, placements, graduate jobs, or even part-time work, and maybe you've just not heard back and you're not quite sure where you're going wrong. So if that's the case, it could be that you've concluded that that tried and tested way isn't actually working for you, which must be quite disheartening, a bit disappointing, but it is a story that we hear all too often from students in the career service. So what if I told you there was another way? Okay, so there's a whole host of jobs that you haven't found yet. Over the next 45 minutes to an hour, what we will do is share with you some ideas to help you think about your job search in a different way. And so we've got Wouter here with us who has some experience to share, so he'll do that a bit later on, and that might just provide you with a bit of inspiration for your own job search. And you've probably come to this session today with a fairly good idea of how to apply for a job through a normal advert, for example, so an application form, a CV. If you haven't, then there's other sessions available. But what you will hopefully leave today's session with is a few more ideas of how you can approach your job search more creatively, some tools to add to your toolbox that will help you find some success, and a renewed enthusiasm. I suppose we're trying to inspire you a little bit today to do something different and try some new things. Right, so we're going to do a quick poll first of all, just to find out sort of where you're all at, how you're all feeling. So I'm going to launch the first one now. Okay, so what can I see here? I'll leave it on a little bit more. So quite a few of you are feeling deflated. That's perfectly understandable. I know it can be quite tricky when you spend so much time, you put all your effort into your applications and then you don't get anywhere with it. So I completely understand that. What else have we got? You sent an application form or a CV and you've not heard back. I'm just going to end the poll now so that you can see what everyone else has put. So these are the results that we've got through so far. So a fair few of you have had to rush a job application, you've missed the deadline, and that tends to be because, you know, adverts only get advertised sometimes for 2 weeks and then they disappear. So that one thing that you were hoping to see just isn't there at the time when you come to look at it. Quite a few of you feeling overwhelmed, deflated we've talked about already. A few of you, probably half of you, have received some rejections from a few jobs. So that's maybe something to think about in a bit more detail. Some of you have applied for jobs without fully researching the company or the job. And so maybe it was just a quick fire. Let's just send some applications off because I've been told I need to apply for things. The same thing with applied for some jobs that you don't really want. We hear that quite a lot. You know, desperation might be setting in. Okay. So that's really interesting. Thank you so much for sharing there. I suppose what I'd like to say to you is it's not all doom and gloom. You are not the only one. Competition for jobs is fierce, especially in the graduate area, but actually the advantage that you have over your fellow students is that you've recognised this. You're taking action already. You are being proactive by being here today. Or for those of you who listen afterwards, you're listening to this recording, so you're being proactive. So well done. You've taken that first step to being more proactive, and that is a word that I might use quite a lot today. This is your chance to take control and search for jobs on your terms rather than just sitting and waiting for that job to appear and going for it then. Okay, let's just move on. So a question for you. When we talk about hidden jobs, what we tend to mean is those that aren't openly advertised or those that are a bit tricky to find. So in the chat, if you could just put a percentage, what percentage of vacant jobs do you think are openly advertised? So that might be through websites, it might be, yeah, I mean, I have to say, if someone had asked me this question, I probably would have gone around the 50 sort of mark. But actually, it's about 20 to 30%. So nobody really knows for sure, but it's thought that only that percentage of jobs are externally advertised, and that might surprise some of you. So there's some areas like media, marketing, international development, fashion, the charity sectors. They're well known for not prominently advertising opportunities. Or indeed, maybe they don't advertise them at all. And so sometimes that's through a fear of them attracting too many applications and they just haven't got the power, the resource to deal with all of those. But also sometimes, and a little bit arrogantly, so rightly or wrongly, they just think that the right candidate will reach out to them. And so they don't need to do any work there. So hidden jobs, you know, I've talked about a few creative type sectors there, but they can be found in all sectors, so it's not just those creative sectors that I've just mentioned there. So I thought it might be quite useful to just share this graphic with you, which just demonstrates some of the options that a company has when thinking about how to fill a vacancy. So also how frequently these channels are used. So I think it really helps to get into the mindset of an organisation, which will then help you in turn to find those hidden jobs. So if you think about adverts, so top of the triangle there, so not many adverts are created, and by that we mean either online or offline. For a company, it can be expensive. You can advertise for free, but a company's never quite sure what they'll get in terms of a candidate pool. No, anybody with any skills can apply for a job, and they might just be overwhelmed. So they might get thousands of applications, they could equally get none. So they don't often use that sort of route, but it is quite a traditional route favoured by some of the larger sectors, especially in places like the public sector, higher education, or where governance or compliance is particularly important to that organisation. And agencies, the next one down there, and by that we mean sort of third parties or headhunters. They can be really expensive for companies to use, but it often helps a company to find really specialist or niche individuals, or maybe where they're recruiting for some a large number, so volume of lower skilled workers. They tend to use those sorts of places. So then it starts getting a bit bigger, this triangle, when you look at the contact section. So this is applicable at all levels of the organisation. So sometimes there's formal routes within an organisation, like recommend a friend scheme, or where there's a financial incentive for employees to recommend somebody that they know. So sometimes though, it's just somebody that they have the right skills, that they've met somewhere. Maybe they've worked with them previously, they've met them at a conference. They may just have had an interaction on LinkedIn or something like that. They might have noticed them. They're quite prominent on social media. And it's often almost free or a lot cheaper for an organisation to use this route. It's a lot quicker for them to make a phone call rather than sit and wait for an advert to bear fruit. So if you think about your own network and then their network and so on, before you know it, you've amassed a huge number of contacts. And some of you may have heard of 6 degrees of separation, which means that you are only 6 social connections away from knowing any other individual in the world. So with that in mind, just think about what's possible. Finally, just at the bottom of the triangle there, you've got internal moves and promotions. So that's the idea that organisations will fill their vacancies from within. So their employees will already be familiar with how the company works, what the values are, the systems that are used, its goals. So many companies will have a strategy of growing talent for this very reason. It can be really efficient for them, and it can cost them nothing as well, because they've got the people already in their organisation. So what does that mean for you then? Okay, so the top 2 parts of that triangle there, by all means, continue to look at job adverts in the usual places, so jobs websites, company websites, but just don't do that exclusively. They might give you some really good clues and pointers about an organisation. So, for example, a company might have a recruitment drive in a certain team, which might demonstrate certain skills that it's looking to grow. So if you see that happening, then maybe you could make an approach in a different way. Agencies. So we don't always recommend using agencies, but think about getting in touch with one. Might be relevant for the type of job that you want, but it's not always right, certainly at sort of graduate level, to use an agency. More importantly though, what you need to think about is targeting your search. So some of you mentioned before about sending scattergun approach to jobs, sending your CV to lots of different places, even though you weren't really that interested. So target your search by homing on what you really want to do, so that you can focus on key sectors, key companies, trade associations, industry bodies, many of whom may have a job section. They might run masterclasses for new entrants, or they might send out a newsletter that has jobs in it. Use the Which Careers section on our career service website. So I think Hannah might put a link in the chat now. There's also a section on there if you've not quite honed in on what it is you want to target. There's a section on I don't know what I want to do, which has got some really nice tools on there to help you think that through, helps you to narrow your options down. Think about, is there a student society that you can join? They often have guest speakers that you can make contact with there. Develop your network. Okay, so we'll show you a bit more about how to do that later, including a demo of LinkedIn by Ben, and something that you might not have found on LinkedIn as well that might help you. Next, open your mind, think creatively about how else you can get into a company of your choosing. So do your research into the types of roles that a company might have. See whether there's opportunities to move around, maybe look for stepping stone jobs. So it might mean that you join an organisation doing a completely different job, or it could be that it's a little bit connected, maybe a more administrative role in a team that you actually want to work in, but do that for a short period of time, because that can then open doors. Quite often, as we said before, companies will only advertise internally, so they won't even send an external advert. But if you're there, even doing your administrative job, you will see that advert and you will apply. Another thing to think about, looking for different routes, is volunteering. Maybe think about doing that in an area that interests you. So the charity sector, for example, you can get noticed by doing something like that. And then finally, make speculative approaches. So I'm going to talk about this in a bit more detail, but just don't wait for them to advertise. You be proactive and contact them. And what we mean by a speculative approach is you could send a CV with a really great cover letter that sells you to the company. You could connect or approach somebody by social media. You could also grab opportunities to introduce yourself and have conversations with people. So, for example, at a careers fair or after a presentation, whether that is virtual, like this session today, or in real life. At a conference, think about how you can make an approach to someone there. So Wouter has got a really nice story to tell you in a minute. But with that in mind, it could be that you need to develop some new skills. Some of this might feel a little bit alien to you. But it could also be that you just use skills that you've learned during your studies, but in a different context. So start to think about what those sorts of skills might be. You've heard me talking for a while now. Maybe if you've got a piece of paper, just jot down what some of those different skills might be that you might need to be using. And we'll come back to that a little bit later on. But for now, it's time to introduce our guest speaker today. So Wouter is an instrument engineer at ExxonMobil, but he was once in your shoes as a student at the University of Manchester. So I'll let him introduce himself fully, but Wouter has joined us to bring to life an experience that he had to lead to some success. So over to you, Wouter.
Thank you, Helen. Thanks for having me on. Hi, everyone. Yes, it's been a while. It's been since 2005, and strangely, I'm still with the same company. So there's not that many people nowadays that keep it going for that long, and everyone always looks for the best opportunity. But for me, it's been they've always given me the opportunity that I look for. So I've been happy to stay with them. So it was back in 2005. I was doing a master's in engineering. And as with all of you, you go into a lot of detail. You get a whole variety of subjects that you become experts at. You know all of the contents of that. But then you got to go and apply for a job, and then suddenly you're switching your framework from what you're learning in class and what you're paying to learn to suddenly you have to contribute to a company and you have to help them make money, because that's what it's about. So it's quite a different way, quite a change, and I think you can probably feel that coming, that it's quite significant. So I started the same way, applying to a variety of companies that I found, okay, I've studied this, so this is what is logical that I need to apply for and I need to do, and line up a bunch of phone interviews. And I know that the UK process is quite a complicated one if you compare that to many other countries. So there's so many different steps, and I don't know if that's for all the all the different types of jobs. I think it might be where you have phone interviews, then the applications, phone interviews, maybe a face-to-face. You'll get some assessment centers, maybe some more face-to-face, and you're exhausted at the end of that journey. So I was not looking forward to that, that's for sure. But I realized that if I did a couple of phone interviews. I've sent out a huge number of applications. Pretty standard, so fill in the paperwork, send your resume, say this is me. Yeah. Who wants it? And I heard little back, to be honest. And yeah, they say this is normal. You know, personally, I don't find it normal. I think candidates should hear back, even if they're not selected. That's what I personally do also. With candidates, but it went a bit quiet, and then we got into the season where all these companies have HR people who come to the campus and start giving speeches about what their company is about, and I was always looking forward to the ExxonMobil one, being in chemical engineering and ExxonMobil being a petrochemical giant. I said, okay, that's really a place where I wanna be. So besides a few other presentations, this is one where I said I'm gonna go to. And I had applied through ExxonMobil, through the UK system. I did the phone interviews, kind of went silent. I didn't know, was that normal? Maybe I just need to wait a bit longer. Yeah, how long do you got to wait to hear back? Nobody really tells you. So when this lady came to give a presentation, she was from Belgium. I was from Belgium. I hadn't made up my mind yet if I wanted to go back to Belgium, and I think I see a lot of the names, so there's a variety of nationalities, and I think that might be on your minds. Do you want to find a job in the UK? Maybe you want to look at another country or go back home. So I wasn't sure about that yet, but I said, let me approach her. And I just walked up at the end of the presentation and said, hey, I love the presentation, you know, I'm very much looking forward working for your company. I did my research, shared a little bit about that. But then I said, look, I'm not really sure how to apply because, you know, I'm applying through the UK system, but I'm really from Belgium. You know, isn't there another way? I guess I kind of approached it saying that, look, I've got a problem, I've got a unique case, can you help solve it? And surprisingly, very often people respond to trying to solve a problem for you or show the way. So that's one of the things I've learned. If you don't ask, you're not going to get. And this is a case where I just asked for it, and I got an email back saying that, yeah, you can also use the Belgian system to apply, which interestingly was much more straightforward. So there was no phone interview. It was 2 short face-to-face interviews. So I flew back over with a low-cost flight that I could just barely afford back to Belgium. And I did 2 face-to-face interviews for the same company, and that was it. So I never had a face-to-face interview with another company. I kind of knew that I wanted to work with them, but I wouldn't have had that chance if I didn't just go up and say, hey, yeah, this is your process, but I'm not sure if that's fit for me. So is there other alternatives? So I guess one of the things that, looking back at it now, still with the same company, companies, they want to know what value are you going to add to them. And that's very difficult because you have all this theoretical knowledge, you've studied everything in books, and you've learned a lot, and you put that on a CV and you send it out there, but there's lots of those CVs that are out there. So I'm sure there's people that have all the same things in a CV as you have. So how do you make yourself different? How do you make sure that people who interview you, that they recognize you at the end, that they read your CV and that they say, oh yeah, that's something I'm going to remember. And I think it's more on the soft skills. It's on the stuff that they don't really teach you at university or at school. It's the stuff that you can build up over time. You can already work on now. And I think, Helen, you already talked about some of those soft skills, like being proactive. Yeah, you can be reactive and you can just sit back in your chair and wait for people to reach back out to you, and might work. Many times it doesn't. So if you show a company you're proactive, all of a sudden you've shown them a soft skill that goes on top of what you already have on your resume. So it's another selling point. It shows networking, right? You're reaching out, you're talking to people, talking to peers, talking to HR organizations, talking at whatever level in a company that you might have a contact with. Networking is not only peer-to-peer. Networking happens at all levels. So if you can show networking skills, you show communication skills, it's again one of these soft skills that make you stand out. Yeah, and companies appreciate that because that's how they're going to make money from having you on the team. Sometimes, especially in the beginning, you may think, okay, yeah, what can I offer? Because I've never had to offer anything to anyone. I've never made money for a company. Well, yeah, it might be very difficult in the beginning, might make you nervous and doubt, can I really add value to a company? You're going to realize, yes, you will. And it's a bit of personal risk, you know, stepping out there, saying, you know, this is what I can do for you. It's another soft skill, by the way, being able to take personal risk. Enthusiasm, I think, Helen, you mentioned enthusiasm. You know, they see that, they catch that, they remember that. So how do you approach them, you know? Did you do your research? Yeah. Do you apply with the same CV, the same resume to all the companies, or have you put something in there that is tailored? You know, maybe you don't need to put the same skills on every resume that you send out to everyone. Maybe if you say I want to apply for that job, you can tailor it a bit so it fits better with the role, and they recognize that. So that as well. So yeah. I would always recommend do a bit of research. If you're really interested in applying for a job at a company, learn about that job. Yeah, tell them something, because once you learn about the job, you can also figure out faster how you can contribute to it, how you can learn from it. And then maybe the last thing I also wanna say is that, and Helen also mentioned that, it's not really important that you got just the right job from the start. I didn't personally. I didn't start as a chemical engineer. I started in instrumentation and control systems. I knew nothing about that when I started, and it doesn't matter. That's not what they hired me. They hired me to grow into that role and use my general engineering expertise then to I guess grow into that role, and that has then brought me to billion-dollar projects in Asia. Now brought me back to provide a global support role to all the engineers at the different sites. So I still have the same title, but I'm still growing in that job now to a point where I'm doing most of the interviews also to assess new candidates. So I'm also getting that perspective now from an employer who basically sits across the table from you guys, and that's why I'm saying just yeah. Do that research, you know, and find a way to show them the value you've got, and it's mostly soft skills. If it's soft skills, why you get hired. So yeah, in terms of the job, don't worry too much if it's not exactly the job you were looking for. In the end, every job is important. There's no such thing as lost time. Sometimes you get breath from a job that you need to then take to the next job that may be a better fit. So yeah, be open, prepare for it, be positive, and always think about your soft skills.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Wouter, for sharing your experience there. I think I just loved hearing about how you took an opportunity to stand out. So you pushed yourself outside your comfort zone a little bit, and you struck up a conversation when everyone else who was listening to that talk might have just scuttled off out of the room and gone and got a coffee, but you stayed behind and you had that conversation, and it led to great things, and you've had a fabulous career since. So that sort of putting yourself out there could apply to so many different situations, and so it was lovely to hear about that. Another thing that I just took was be ready to talk about yourself and ask the right questions at any opportunity. You never know when you might strike up a conversation with someone on a bus, or, you know, in a conference, or a guest speaker somewhere. So I'm going to introduce you to some words here you might not have heard of before, but have an elevator pitch ready. And by that, it's a very short statement or few statements about who you are. So it's a summary. Who are you? What are you doing? What are you looking for? What have you got that's special that you could offer to someone? So if any of you, we've not got time, unfortunately, to talk about elevator pitches here, but Hannah's going to just pop something in the chat, which is about networking and communicating. So there's some tips for how you can build that elevator pitch, how you can practice it, so that whenever you meet someone, you think, oh, this person could be really important, you can do your elevator pitch to them. So thanks again, Wouter. That was really useful. Okay, so he talked a lot there about drawing on contacts that you just ad hoc come into, but actually you need to draw on your existing contacts too. So don't forget that you probably already have a willing network of people who want to help you. And I'm thinking family, extended family, friends, academics that you see every day, former teachers even, you know, people that you've just come across in life. Reach out to them. Tell them about you, what you're looking for, what your skills are. And without realizing, you probably already do this, reaching out and just talking to people. So, you know, thinking about if in your flat you've got an IT problem and your friend's flatmate is really brilliant with IT, you might reach out to them via your friend to get some help. So looking for jobs and helpful contacts is no different to that. So that person might not be able to offer you a job, but actually they could give you really helpful advice. They could point you in the right direction. They might even be happy to, you know, advocate for you and keep their eyes and ears open for vacancies they hear of and let you know. It might be ones that have been publicly advertised, but you maybe haven't spotted. So think about who you can help, who can help you. And again, think back to that theory of 6 degrees of separation that I talked about before. When you get in contact with someone, it helps if you have something in common. So for instance, you went to the same school, university, did the same course. So plan your conversation. What do you want to get out of it? Also say how you came across them. You know, who is it that you know that knows them? So keep it quite informal maybe until it needs to get formal, but always keep in mind that you need to be professional. Think about the impression that you are making on this person and that you're making yourself someone that they would be happy to recommend. And finally, the red box there, I think this is really important when with a hidden job search. You could potentially be talking to tens or hundreds of people. Keep a record of letters that you send, contacts that you make, people you approach, leads that you have. You know, someone told me to contact this person. But also make sure you write down people's names, their job titles, people you need to contact, dates that you need to follow something up. So in this sense, a spreadsheet might be really handy for those of you who aren't scared by spreadsheets. So yeah, just a little tip there. And we've talked a bit about speculative applications. So there's loads of information about how to put together a speculative application on our website. But usually what this involves is an impactful cover letter along with your CV. It's always better to have a lead in. So, you know, James mentioned that you might have some vacancies in your team. But if you don't have that, try and find the right person to approach. So that might not be the CEO, the chief exec of a company, but it might be a head of department. It might be a manager. HR is another route, but quite often, having worked in HR myself, they tend to be the guardians of the process. They tend to like doing adverts and getting people to apply in a way that follows the process. So by all means try, but you might not get very far with an HR person. Okay, so you can prepare a speculative application in advance. Here's just a few do's and don'ts on the screen here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I think what's really important is say what you want. Say what appeals to you, what inspires you about this company, what excites you, what do you know about this company that motivates you to connect? So your motivation for contacting them in the first place is really important. Make sure you give them your contact details. Demonstrate links that you have to them. So, you know, before I said, oh, James mentioned that I should contact you. Put that in the letter. So maybe you've had a LinkedIn conversation with someone. Maybe you've spoken to someone at a careers fair. Mention that person in your speculative letter that you write. Maybe you heard a presentation that someone gave at your university and it really inspired you, and that's why you're contacting them directly. What you don't want to do is skip the evidence. So as with any cover letter, don't just say, I've got the skills that you need. You need to be convincing. You need to tell them what skills you have and how they will add value. Provide context for where you develop those skills, and automatically you gain more credibility with your letter. Be careful of being quite gushy. You know, quite often we see them in the career service where people say, oh, I'm overjoyed to see you, I'm ecstatic, I'm filled with passion by your organisation. Try and just tone it down a little bit and just keep it really professional. Think about what you would say in an actual conversation and try and use that. Don't forget to mention the company. So it's no good having one letter that's really generic that you send out to everybody. Make sure you tailor it and make it really specific. Okay, and there's more tips about how to write a great cover letter on our career service website. There's also some examples on there to get you started, and there's an interactive tool actually as well called Career Set. So you can upload your cover letter and it will give you some tips about what you could think to include, how you could structure it differently, that sort of thing. Okay, so with all of that in mind, we've talked about what hidden jobs are. We've started to think about networking in terms of approaching people proactively. Ben's now just going to give you a quick demo of how you can use LinkedIn to grow your network, maybe some inventive ways, and how to make an approach to some of the contacts that you find in the right way. So Ben, handing over to you now.
Indeed. Helen, in the interest of time, do you want me to keep this a very brief tour of one or two things? I'm conscious we've only got maybe 10 minutes left of the slot.
Please do, that would be super, thank you.
Okay, very quickly then, we've talked a lot about how you're going to reach out to other people, how you're going to try and be proactive. LinkedIn is one of the ways in which you can do that, both to explore your options and also to find useful people. In the interest of time, I'm not going to dwell on things like building a profile. There's lots of good videos for that on our YouTube channel and on our website around how to get started with LinkedIn and how to raise your presence there to make people aware that you are actually there. What I really want to showcase is my favorite thing on LinkedIn, and that is the alumni tool. For me, it is the single most useful thing on there, and it simplifies the whole slightly scary business of trying to get in touch with strangers on this platform. So with that in mind, let us go to LinkedIn. It would be silly not to. And that means I need this. Once you're in LinkedIn, what you are going to do is you're going to look for an educational institution. We are going to go with Manchester. You don't have to stick with Manchester. You can perform this trick with, as you can see, I've been doing this already today, any university under the sun. But we'll start here because one of the things we've touched upon is that sense of trying to make a connection with someone with whom you have common ground. I'm about to show you how you're going to find 250,000 people with whom you have common ground. And to do that, go to the University of Manchester LinkedIn page and hit alumni. What this will give you is a filtered network. LinkedIn will handily deliver 250,000 Manchester graduates who have LinkedIn profiles. Now, on the slightly dangerous assumption they've all kept their profiles up to date, you suddenly have 250,000 individuals whose data you can now filter through in lots of interesting ways to find the ones who would be most interesting for you to reach out to, or just to explore your options more generally. Let's take those two examples. Let's say you would like to know, okay, I want to explore hidden jobs for people who studied something that I have, so people who studied my degree. Having got to the alumni tool, you're going to scroll down here and you'll find the additional filters are such things as where are these people now, for whom are they working, what sector are they in, what did they study. There's two more, by the way, in other areas, just so for the sake of completeness, but this is where you might want to start. If you want to know where do people with a physics degree like me end up, then this is where you're going to come, and suddenly this column gets way more interesting. It provides you with insight and inspiration into what else could you be considering if you feel, as many of the room might do, that you've exhausted other options. Now, as you immediately look down this list, of course, the biggest names are going to rise to the top. They're the ones with the most Manchester grads working for them. You may feel like you've kind of dealt with all that stuff. You want to move on to things which you haven't seen before. Well, fine. Let's maybe try applying a few different filters. Maybe you want to know about people in the Manchester area who have a degree like yours. Let's do that. Let's start taking a look down this list once again. Some of these names you may still recognize, but as soon as you start applying more filters and this number starts to go down to a slightly more manageable level, you're at the point where this column becomes more interesting and you will start to encounter more companies that you have never heard of before. And that's an interesting place to be when you want to start exploring the hidden jobs market. It's finding out who else is out there and how could you reach out to them. So what next then? You've looked at what do people do with my degree. Maybe you then want to decide, okay, I can find interesting people this way, because once you've filtered for these 1990 Manchester alumni who studied physics and are still in Manchester, you might say, okay, I want to reach out to some of them. I want to build a rapport there, get some questions answered, that sort of thing. How are you going to do that with LinkedIn? Well, the etiquette of LinkedIn is such that if we wanted to send a connection request to Colette here, for example, if you try and do that from a page of search results, it's just going to rattle it off for you. It will send off the connection request with no further intervention. But open up a profile, and when you try and hit connect from here, suddenly you'll find that you can personalize your invitation. And this starts to get into how are you going to appeal to people on a personal level? How are you going to convince them that they should answer your questions? Why not start with something like, hi, I'm a fellow Manchester graduate. I found you through the alumni tool. I'm fascinated by the work you're currently doing. Is there any chance I could have a chat with you about it? Could you maybe answer some questions on LinkedIn? Try not to fall into the trap that many have done on LinkedIn of asking for too much too soon. That is to say, it is easier than ever to track down a company's HR personnel, their hiring managers, and to ask them such questions as, do you have any jobs going? My worry is they're likely to ignore you because they get a lot of requests along those lines. People asking for inside information. That's something you can work up to. What I would suggest is start slowly, begin asking questions about what it's like to work in a company, where you can find more information. Don't ask for too much too soon, because there's too much likelihood that somebody will run. They will look at your connection request and say, I don't have time for that, or I don't even have that kind of information. They might not feel ready to talk about that. So start slowly. Ask for small things, build that relationship before you start asking for the big stuff, please. So what else could you do with this tool? As a final thing, we've looked at the University of Manchester's alumni tool, but you don't have to limit yourself to this. Yes, you've got common ground with all of these people, but let's say you want to explore the hidden jobs market in some other part of the world. The joy of this thing is that you can perform this trick with any institution's alumni. You don't have to limit yourself to Manchester. You might want to look at the University of Singapore. You might want to look at the University of Leeds. Wherever you care to name, there will be a LinkedIn presence for that institution and an alumni tool. So if you'd like to explore the hidden jobs market in a particular city, find the nearest university, do this same thing, and you'll get way more local hits for that area. You'll get more people who have stayed in the area, who maybe are from that area and have found jobs there. And that is another way to explore this, and once again start building connections, start reaching out to people as you go. I'm going to pause there because I'm conscious of the time. There is so much more we could talk about here, but this is a great thing, and you can always come talk to us at Careers about it if you want to explore it further.
Thank you so much, Ben. Right, I'm just going to take back. Raising your profile and interacting on LinkedIn go arm in arm. So the algorithms in LinkedIn mean that the more that you interact, the more you see, and the more others see you and your activity. So maybe start small if this is feeling a bit daunting for you. So like things anyone can like, share things, comment on things, and build up, join groups, make connections, build up to actually posting something yourself. You could start by approaching people in a small way to start with. So think about people that you know. Very happy for you to connect with any of us on this call today, if you want a bit of a practice of how to connect with someone. But do that comment about common interest, and then build up, as Ben was talking about, making requests of them as well. Okay, so moving on. LinkedIn is one social networking tool, but there's others that you'll no doubt be familiar with. So the likes of Twitter, Instagram, blogs, that sort of thing. So you might be wondering what the rules are for using those for job searching. Well, the rules are pretty similar in terms of building your profile, interacting and approaching using the right etiquette, as Ben was talking about. So I was hoping to have another of our Manchester alumni here today. Kat May, but unfortunately she's based in Australia and therefore the timings didn't work. So what she has done is provided input to other careers sessions that we have run, and I didn't want to lose that important message. So I've got a couple of short video clips to share with you. So just to introduce Kat, she's currently a social media manager at KPMG, where she's been for quite a while. But previously, she completed a degree in linguistics here at Manchester, and she's had a number of roles in marketing and the media space over the last decade or so. So in this first clip that we're just going to show you, Kat's talking about how she built her presence on social channels when she was still at university and she was thinking about starting her career. So Ben is just going to share that now. Thank you.
So this is me online nowadays. This would be my LinkedIn profile, and in 2021, working at a Big Four accountancy and professional services firm, LinkedIn is very much my social media heartland. When I grow my network, LinkedIn is very much the channel that I'm always looking to grow, and it's a social channel where I have been very curated in creating a presence that really showcases my skill set in that social media space. But it hasn't always been the case that LinkedIn has been where I've been growing my social media presence. So over the years, and I'm sure this goes way back to even before uni, as this tweet on screen here shows, I have been using social media to find both journalism and marketing work experience for as long as I've had Twitter. This was one of my tweets I found when I was scrolling back through my social presence when I was creating these slides. And I think this kind of set the scene for many years to come of me using different social channels and different platforms online to find professional experience. So here on this screen, you'll see that whilst I was at university, I was a very keen and active blogger. And what I did when I created my blogs, I would be very focused in what about me writing this increases my employability. So I think, as Margaret was saying in the presentation before, it's all about doing in your free time. So whilst I may not have been getting professional experience in writing for web in a paid role, I was making that experience myself with my own writing. And so, as you can see here, I had my blogs. I have actively promoted blogs to different careers organisations. I've guest written for The Guardian on the back of me being really active in their weekly live chats. I kind of became a regular feature, like a regular commenter, and on the back of that, I was able to pitch a story and get that published by The Guardian careers section. Through to more later stages of my career, I have picked up freelance work from Facebook groups. I know Margaret mentioned Facebook groups, particularly skewed to those roles in the north of England, but they exist everywhere, and this is one that I'm in that I'd highly recommend, Find a Finders Fee Global, that particularly looks for roles across not just marketing, but broader advertising and also some TV and screen roles as well. But by having this profile, social media profile building throughout the years whilst I was at university and beyond, I've been very fortunate to receive a lot of opportunities come my way.
Great, thanks for that, Ben. So hopefully that's given you a few ideas of how you can use social media to build your presence. So in Kat's current role, managing social media for KPMG, she has often run training sessions for managers on how to manage their profiles. And as she's the expert here, I just wanted to share with you another short video clip on some tips from her on how to tailor and maintain your profiles to best achieve success. So Ben, if you wouldn't mind just sharing the next clip.
This is what I've done. It's not saying it's what will work for everyone, but I hope that there's kind of some learnings along the way. But when it comes to kind of kickstarting that presence, and I'm sure for many of you, you probably already have a professional social presence in some way or another. But I think it's really important to think about on which channels you want to be professional and which you want to keep personal. You don't need to kind of skew every single social account you have to you being the best screenwriter potential employee there ever is, but just think about where you should be setting your profile settings, your privacy settings to private, and where you can have those public. So for me, I always knew that Twitter, when I was starting my career, Twitter was very much the channel where I was really curating that professional image, whereas my Facebook and in later stages my Instagram were much more personal. So I adapted my privacy settings on those, and at times I would reference my Twitter channel in job applications or covering letters, whereas I wouldn't do the same for my more personal channels. Once you know where you want to be, I think it's really important to nail the basics. And when I do trainings here at KPMG to help people improve their social, I always talk about kind of your profile hygiene. And so that's the real basics. That's making sure on LinkedIn, having a headline that really reflects who you are and potentially what opportunities you're looking for, having an about summary that conveys all the experience you've picked up through university, and it doesn't have to be paid professional experience. It can be all the great stuff you're doing in student media. If you're kind of a go-getter and doing it yourself, really that's the place to call that out, and making sure that you're kind of calling out those roles or experiences you do have in the experience section on LinkedIn. On Twitter, I think more about how to be kind of having that content approach ongoing and how to convey in your bio exactly who you are, and also again open to opportunities in X. Think about who you want to be seeing your content and tailor your tone accordingly. So if you're looking to work in marketing in-house at a kind of a big corporate like I do now, then obviously you might want to tailor your tone to that. If you're looking to stand out and get hired by a creative agency that specializes in millennial marketing, then get yourself on TikTok and get creating content that will help kind of build your experience and career in that way. And maintain a regular presence. When you do find where you want to be, maintain a regular presence. So posting frequency is something that I definitely encourage you to try to pick a frequency and maintain it, because I definitely feel that perseverance pays off. Don't expect to kind of update your LinkedIn today and be flooded with job offers tomorrow. That's sadly not how it works. But I do think investing with time in growing that social presence is really important.
Great, thank you, Ben. Right, let me just share again. I shall be with you. Right, okay, so in fact, let's just move on. So some great advice from Kat there. We've looked a bit at speculative applications. You've heard about social networking sites to search for a job, but I just wanted to share with you what happens when the two are mixed together. So here's a few examples of students who've applied their creativity to their job search, some with more success than others. So Amir, University of Manchester alumni, he gained traction of over 100,000 likes and shares on LinkedIn last year when he stood outside Liverpool Street Station in London with his billboard CV. Sam wanted to work in sports media at the BBC, posted this creative CV online to get attention, obviously using the branding of BBC Sport. Here are some examples of students wanting to catch the eye of fashion brands, so Boohoo, Pretty Little Thing, by turning their CV into jigsaws, t-shirts, cakes, even a doll's house delivered to their office doorstep. So this will not work for everyone, so please exercise caution if you're thinking about doing something like this. It needs to be really targeted. These were just some applications to creative industries. I'm not sure how these would be received in a more traditional or formal setting. If you are thinking about giving something like this a go, please talk to someone first. We're very happy to help you think through pros and cons of different approaches in the career service. Okay, so moving on. I mentioned earlier about having to change your mindset a little and think about skills that might be helpful. Hopefully you've been making some notes as we've been going through. You might be wondering why there's an emoji in the middle of this slide. That's just to give you a clue to some of the skills that you'll need that's scattered around this slide. So I like to think of it a bit about being a detective. Right, so communication skills, think about the etiquette and the approach, the attention to detail, look for leads, think about planning, there's that proactivity word again, curiosity, have an inquiring mind, you know, resilience, courage, have bounce back if you reach a dead end. So one thing you might notice here is that this new mindset that we're talking about and these new skills isn't so much about a new set of skills, it's about repurposing some that you will have used during your studies or in life generally. So it doesn't need to be daunting. So you can do this whether you're someone who likes to plan and reflect or someone who just likes to get stuck in and do. Okay, so it's your call. The only thing not to do is nothing. If you sit and wait, it's unlikely that you'll get very far. So what's the worst that could happen then? So these companies that you're approaching or these people, they could say no. You could not hear back from them at all, and that's absolutely fine. For every no, there will be someone saying yes, so don't let that deter you. It might be a no now, but if you've made a really good impression, they might remember you in 6 months' time, you know, maybe when they've got a job opening. So keep going. That determination and resilience will reap rewards in the end. Okay, so just I was going to do one more poll. Actually, yes, let's do it. Let's do it because I think it's really good at pulling everything together. Hopefully you're all still with us, even though we've run over a little bit. So just launch this here. Which of these approaches do you think might work for you? So this will help to think through what you're going to do next. So are you going to target your job search? Are you going to have some conversations with people? Are you going to expand your network via LinkedIn? Send some speculative applications or CVs? Are you going to reach out to guest presenters after you've been at an event? Update your social media profile to show that you're seeking opportunities? Are you going to be open to stepping stone jobs in companies that, you know, maybe you've not thought of or you do want to work for, but in a different area or something like that? Are you going to build your presence online by writing a blog or interacting in some other way? Are you going to produce a creative CV? Oh, we've got one person that wants to do that. Brilliant. Okay, well, come and talk to us. Right, so let me just share these results with you. I mean, I've talked through them there anyway, and it's a nice little summary just to tie up this session. Hopefully you've got at least one thing that you feel like you can have a go at after this session that will change the way that you approach job searching. So some final thoughts then. Whatever stage of using social media you're at, there's always more you can do. So remember, raise your profile, interact, approach, and keep doing it. Start small if it feels easier, but do something. Set yourself a goal and check in on yourself after a week and a month. So hold yourself to account with this. If you do get the opportunity to have a further conversation with someone, treat it like an interview and prepare. Just because you've got through that first stage doesn't mean that next stage is going to be quite so informal. So I'd like you all to write down at least one thing that you'll do after today's session. Hopefully the juices are flowing, you're feeling a bit more enthusiastic about this now. Hopefully, you know, we talked at the beginning about having some more ideas of how you can approach your job search more creatively. Hopefully now you've got some tools in your toolbox to help you find success. So we're thinking LinkedIn, we're thinking about how you're going to use social media. And hopefully you've got a bit of renewed enthusiasm and you feel that something might be possible. You're going to try some new things. So please feel free to connect with any of us here, any of the presenters on LinkedIn. Stay in touch with us. It can be a practice run for your LinkedIn, or get in touch with us by web chat if you've got any questions, which is Monday to Friday, 10 till 4 in the careers service, or come along to one of our drop-in sessions, which are, you can see when they are on Career Connect. Or maybe you want to book an appointment, got some ideas, just not quite sure how to take it. So yeah, thanks for listening, and I hope to see you soon. But that is now the end of the session. If you do have some questions that are unanswered, then all of us are happy to stay around for a little bit at the end